Welcome in Deseret News Rewind. Dusty Litster and Dane Stewart, as always, presented by Heidemann Associates and brought to you by the Utah Army National Guard.
Yeah, that's right, Dusty. And I just want to remind you, in case you're looking for that next step in your life, but you don't know where you're going to get the job skills for that career shift, check out the National Guard. Over 150 different career path options available where you can gain that job experience, and they'll even help you pay for it, up to $20,000 in signing bonus and $20,000 in educational assistance available through the National Guard. To learn more, visit nationalguard.com.
Absolutely, and always we're outfitted by Black Clover, and we're getting close. You have Black Friday coming up. Now that I got all the holidays and everything else, and Black Clover is a great place to go. Go to blackcloverusa.com, put in the code DNR20, or if you want a better discount, go to the store next to the water park just off 123rd South. Get a better discount by going to the store at Black Clover. We love our gear. Going to get some more of it, and especially getting ready to go to basketball games. So we're going to be all set and ready to go. Brought to you, thanks to our good friends at Black Clover. Well, we made it, folks. In the first video we did back in August, we talked about was do everything we can to make sure the season can go, and we got there. Championship games all done, football season all wrapped up, and what we wanted to do today is go through these games, talk about them, because for a lot of these seniors, well, it'll be the last time we talk about them in this context, and so congratulations to those who will be going on to play in the next level. We'll be doing a signing day show and getting all ready for that. But let's start first here. The opening statement brought to you by Heidemann and Associates. Dane, let's talk about, first of all, the biggest impacts that we saw this last week, because when we look at what happened in the 6A game, one of the biggest impacts, Jackson Dart in that offense, but it was just players all over the field to help out Corner Canyon.
Yeah, it was. You talk about Jackson Dart, the day that he had, 4 passing touchdowns, obviously huge, to 4 different receivers, mind you. And, they got running the football a little bit too. Jackson Dart almost had 100 yards rushing in the first half. Got Carlson going a little bit. But that defense, Dusty, they were fantastic. And we talk about a Lone Peak team that's put up a lot of points all year long. But, Taggart flew around for this defense. I saw Jackson Light up front, really on both sides of the football for Corner Canyon, blocking efficiently well and then bringing guys down. This Lone Peak offense, they've been able to move the football a lot. That's an experienced offensive line. They've been able to establish the run, and they just could not do it in this state championship game. It was really a complete effort by Corner Canyon, and really leaving no doubt they were the best team in 2020, and they show that with the state championship.
Yeah, really, really impressive. And not only that, one of our favorite moments, and it was our top play from the weekend on DNR T5, and that was Austin Bell being able to come out and get the kneel down the last 2 plays. And, because you just feel for someone like Austin Bell. This is a guy that's a key cog on this team. Even as a sophomore in the championship game against Sky Ridge, he had big plays that sparked that team, helped get the win in their first championship. And it missed the last 2 championship games with injuries. And that just absolutely rips our hearts out. It sucks to see someone at his skill level not to get to finish his high school career on the field, but it was terrific to see him come out and get those final plays wearing the Charger blue and gray.
Yeah, he took a snap. Awesome to be able to see that. And I know it wasn't the senior year that he had hoped for. A young man that, he can be an impact player, not only at this level, but at the next level as well. And certainly wish the best for him in his future opportunities. We talk about the Dusty Litster, heading up the Noah Care bandwagon or freight train, whatever it may be. How about 8 receptions, 120 yards for Care with a touchdown? Hagan had 9 receptions, 132 yards. 2 different receivers over 120 yards receiving for this Corner Canyon offense, en route to almost 500 total yards. And this is against a Lone Peak defense, folks. I coined them the Knights who say nay, because they just don't allow you in the end zone. Well, it was the Knights who gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points in this state championship. And look, for Lone Peak, they were missing, guys. They missed guys in the semifinal. They weren't able to practice leading up to that state championship game, had a key contributor defensively, wasn't able to go in that game. For Lone Peak, it's great they were able to play this game, right? Allow their seniors back on the field, but this was not a normal week of preparation for them. And had it been a normal week, this game probably doesn't play out the way that it did. But it is what it is. It's a COVID year. It's 2020, and for Lone Peak, hard to have the resolve to get through all of that with all of the different challenges they've experienced the last 2 weeks. And I think the scoreboard showed nothing to be taken away from Lone Peak. Still a great year, back in the state championship game once again. But Corner Canyon just too much for all of 6A in 2020.
Yeah, and one of the most impressive parts is the compilation when you get done. Things taken care of a year and in a career. And Jackson Dart finishes with one of the best seasons in state history. He has the most touchdown passes of all time. I believe he finished with 67 on the year. Passing yards, he was something like 40 yards away from breaking the single season passing record for yards. Noah Kerr, and right now is the leading receiver in the country. And then you look at all time in yards, amongst other things. And this was just a terrific run for this team, and what a spectacular year, coming off of 2 seasons that you wonder, well, how can that season be better than the year before? Matter of fact, you can go back to the last 4 seasons. How could other than winning a championship game, how were they ever going to top what they did on offense? And right now, each of the last 4 years, that previous year's offense probably been a little better than the one before.
Yeah, I mean, Dusty, you look at it, 14-0 now for the last 3 years, and the points scored have gone up every year. So to your point, it just continues to get better and better. Now, that being said, this senior class, it's going to be impactful when they leave. There's a lot of depth on Corner Canyon, and certainly don't expect them to drop in the standings next year. But how do you surpass 671 scored points, Dusty? I just don't know how you do that. They were that solid all year long. And, again, the most points they've scored as a program in a single season in school history. So Coach Kerr leaving his mark in Draper.
Absolutely. Let's get to the Utah Army National Guard quick hits. And if you're looking for that next bump in your career, the Utah Army National Guard is a place to be and a place that you can look forward to, because it's not just your career. If you want to get school paid for, there's been multiple ways to get great signing bonuses, but to get assistance up to $20,000.
Yeah, and again, it's not just about military service at the National Guard. You may have interest in engineering or mechanics, nursing, all sorts of different career path options available. As Dusty mentioned, over 150 of them. To learn more, visit nationalguard.com.
All right, let's talk about 5A and 4A here. When we talk about this season, we talked about this in the broadcast, Orem and all the craziness and things that had gone on for the Orem Tigers. We talk about coaching with Coach Hill. Right before the season starts, he steps aside and thought it might just be temporary. It became permanent. Gabe Sewell did such a spectacular job with this team. And then to have a tough schedule, got a tough loss at Sky Ridge and things like that. But then to go 4 weeks without playing, able to keep the kids focused, and then make the run in the state tournament that they did. It was very, very impressive to watch what happened with the Orem Tigers.
Yeah, it really was, Dusty. We talk about Orem. I mean, we talk about how good Corner Canyon has been in recent years. But Orem, all they do now is win state championships. My goodness, 4 consecutive for the Orem Tigers. And there's a nice little, consistent figure in all of that. And it's Kingsley Suamataia. I mean, how about this young man? Starts as a freshman on that state championship team, 4-year starter for Orem, and he takes them to a state title every year for that bunch. And, Coach Hill, you mentioned, steps away early in the season, but the program he had built, and now Coach Sewell, that he has been able to continue on for this Orem squad, despite losing one of the best all-purpose players the state has ever seen in Noah Sewell. You go back a couple years ago, Puka Nakua, Chase Laga. I mean, they have had some turnover there, and yet guys have continued to show up and fill in for Orem, and they did so again here in 2020. And you look at this game, Dusty, I mean, we talked a lot about Joe Smith. He had another fantastic game. Micah Fea, managed this game very well for Orem. Didn't go out there and throw the football all over the field. We've seen him do that at times in his career at Orem, but this was about establishing the run, ran for over 200 yards against that Pineview defense, really controlled the line of scrimmage, controlled the tempo, the clock, and able to push them to another state championship.
Well, it was impressive because, you look at what happened in this game. You talk about Joe Smith and had that spectacular game. And this game started an interesting way because Raider DeMooney did what he did against Salem Hills and getting a turnover and didn't take it to the house. And I tell you what, this Orem defense did an outstanding job. I mean, I believe Almavai threw, 57 passes. And part of that was that apparently Pineview felt like they were able to have to go through the air to get after Orem. Targi Lamson had his moments. And but just when you look at what this offense did, it was very, very impressive to watch the game plan they had. But the offense is one thing; the defense was spectacular for the Orem Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And Dusty, you mentioned Targi Lamps. It was great to see him go last week. Great to see him come out in this state championship game. Had 14 carries, 81 yards in the contest, but we didn't see a lot of him late in the third and fourth quarter. I know that he missed a lot of the year battling with injuries and not quite certain if that was really just kind of scheme and game plan or if it was he got dinged up again. Have no idea what that purpose was, but this was a team for Pineview, 27 rushes, only 55 yards. So you talk about how good that Orem defense was. They shut it down. And you look up front, I mean, Skips was all over the place. IU, they had monster games defensively, both with double-digit in tackles. And, I mean, it was just tough for Pineview to get anything going. You talk about Amavai having to throw the football a lot in this contest, 59 passes for Leo Amavai in this match. And, for Orem, that secondary, they were ready to go. Had a couple of interceptions they were able to force, and really, Pineview also had opportunities to stretch the field here. Dusty just could not complete some of those deep balls. They did once or twice, led to some points. If they were able to hit that more consistently, they have some big plays in this ball game. But Orem really did a great job of limiting that run, forcing Pineview to try to beat them deep, and they just couldn't quite get it consistently enough to defeat Orem on this given night.
You mentioned Paxton Skips. We can't talk about this championship game without mentioning his impact on both sides of the ball. And it was a terrific night for him. And before we close out, talk about 5A. I mean, again, we said this in the broadcast, but the year for Pineview, talk about the up and downs for Orem. I mean, to deal with everything for Coach Stokes and Tia, we continue to send out our best thoughts and prayers and wishes to you and everything's gone on the Stokes family. But it's Pineview being able to deal with the things they had to deal with. I mean, you got a lot of guys that had come in, some chemistry stuff you had to get figured out. And you got a lot of very good players. I mean, we talk about Demooney, but you got Fano and then Feely amongst other Targi Lamson and others that we talked about. We could spend more time talking about. Because Demooney's been a big portion of what we're talking about because he's had such a spectacular 4-year run at Pineview. But to get this ship righted, because it didn't start out the way that Pineview wanted it to go. I mean, the losses to Lone Peak and American Fork. It didn't end. The season ended at Stansbury with them scoring 49 points. It was really interesting. And then Pineview goes through the state tournament run. And I know I went against them and wasn't anything about Pineview. Just didn't know what we were going to see after that loss to Stansbury. But impressive to get the championship game once again, back-to-back years, and the teams they had to go through to do it. Go through Olympus, go through Brighton, and then knock off Salem Hills and shut out Salem Hills. I mean, that's an impressive run to get to the state championship game.
Yeah, it is. And, we also talked, Dusty, a little bit about some of the struggles. We mentioned Lamson missed a large portion of the year. And for this Pineview team, I mean, look, it was not a year where the puzzle fit really perfectly. I mean, you had to move pieces around on any given week. And they were able to kind of fight through all of that. And you talk about the rough start, Lone Peak, American Fork, Bingham. Look, Coach Stokes, he's going to go out there and schedule the best teams. He wants his team to understand what it takes to compete with the best. And they did that again in 2020 and able to turn things around in region play, get things kind of righted. Week 10 loss to Stansbury was one that kind of took me by surprise. And to your point, didn't quite know what we were going to see from them in the playoffs. But again, they came around and really, did a great job of rallying and making a deep push. And you think about that Olympus game, Dusty, a strong fourth quarter in that game to really put it away. You think about Brighton, the number one team, undefeated in 5A this year. They were able to beat them in the second round, shut out Salem Hills in a game where Salem Hills had as good of an offense as you would see in 5A this year. And Jared Elmer just couldn't get anything going. This defense was that good. It was kind of an up and down year for Pineview. They cap it off in another state championship. This team is that close. Last year they had some turnovers. This year they had some turnovers as well. That close to winning a state championship. Coach Stokes is doing a great job of keeping Pineview on the map. And watch for them in coming years. You just have a feeling like they're right on the doorstep. Play here, play there. They might find themselves with a ring. He's doing a great job of keeping Pineview really at the front and center of 5A.
No, absolutely. I think when we learned about both these programs, that the assistants are terrific. And that Orem, if Gabe Souls step in after what Jeremy Hill had done, winning 3 straight state championships, but it's the coaches around him. I know both coaching staffs would tell us that. We talked to Donnie Antawai and others, and they just take care of each other. And just an impressive night. And congratulations again to Orem, 4 straight state championships and back-to-back years against Pineview. Now we look at 4A, and this was the best championship game that we had over the weekend. Dane and I made the trip down immediately after the 5A title game, get down to St. George. The weather was as good as we hoped it would be, but the football was probably a little even better. And, it was impressive to watch Pineview and wondering what they were going to do. But when you leave, I know we both left going, my goodness, the offensive line and the physicality of Skyview really held out.
Well, Dusty, when I got there, I said, my goodness, the physicality and size of Skyview up front. They looked like a 6A line. I mean, they were beasts up front. And you look at what they did in that first half. They just ran the football. Didn't have a lot of interest in throwing. We've seen Carlson. He can sling it. And they've got down the field options, but on this afternoon, forget that, man. We're going to rely on our physicality up front. It led to good things for Skyview, able to have a first half lead going into the break. The defense, Dusty, this Pineview offense, we talk about Skyview up front. Well, Pineview, look, we're just going to sling it on you. We got Dominic McKenzie. We know you're not going to be able to stay with him all game. And how about the game for Preston Mann? I mean, this guy shows up, had 3 or 4 touchdown receptions on the game, was absolutely fantastic for Pineview. And Skyview had a couple of opportunities to take this game and stretch it. Had a 2-possession lead at one point. Thought, oh boy, look out, because that physicality of Skyview is just going to take over. But Pineview did a great job of getting back in this ball game, despite that size difference up front. A couple of penalties here or there, incompletion, a short stop, and next thing you know, Pineview able to get the ball back in that offense, Dusty. Once it got in rhythm, oh boy, you knew we were in for a shootout, and that's what we had in the second half of this one.
Yeah, I mean, got to give a couple shout outs. I mean, Saxton had a great night. I believe Titan Saxton, the safety and wide receiver, had a great day for Skyview, and it was 5 forced turnovers. I mean, it was 5 turnovers for Pineview, and only 1 for Skyview. And that was the turning point of this game. It was a 3rd and 29. And Carlson had to run around it. Pineview forces a fumble, finally get the turnover, and was about 3 minutes left in the game. The very next play, Pineview coughs it up. Skyview gets it back, and Pineview never got the ball back. And Skyview raises their 2nd straight banner. Let's go to our KAVA defensive moment of the week, and it comes from the 5A championship game. And we had it in the DNRT 5 plays of the week. If you're going to close out a championship, why not do it on the goal line? Because it wasn't just 4 plays for the Orem Tigers. Well, there were 4, and then there was another 4. 8 plays inside the 10-yard line for Pineview, and the Orem defense built a wall up and said, "You're not crossing it." And they held out Orem and able to seal off and put away the opportunity to win their 4th state championship in a row.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about how impressive that defense was. Obviously, the turnover on downs were huge, Dusty. I mean, it was 26-13 the final. This game, always kind of teetered around that 2-possession difference. And if you're Pineview, you're able to score on one of those. All of a sudden, this thing gets real interesting real quickly. That Orem defense was heady and good to go all game long.
Again, if you enjoy KAVA or you never have, and you're like, well, I don't want to drink it, mix KAVA, you can get the powder, you can mix it with the filters, everything else. But not only that, if you want to take it in pill form and help you get the edge off, 100% KAVA, go to KAVA.com, put in the code football, and get a discount on that. All right, let's get to our Black Clover looking good performers of the week. Dane, I'll go first on this one. Let's go back to the 5A championship game. Because there's a lot of guys. We can go Dart or somebody else, but I mean, Paxton Skips and what he did for the Orem Tigers in this championship game. I was saying he had 52 yards rushing, something like that, but 2 rushing touchdowns in this game on offense. And then on defense, 10 tackles and an interception. And just a spectacular evening for Paxton Skips. And probably one of the best moments was we missed the injury, but he was on the training table, and his teammates came over and carried him to the celebration. Took him over there, and it shows you everything. What we talked about in the broadcast, football builds character and family and all that stuff, and then just to see the teammates carrying him over so he could celebrate with the team was a spectacular moment. It was a terrific night and a championship game for Paxton Skips.
Yes, it was. He certainly left his impact there, and 5 carries, 52 yards. Noah Sewell-like, albeit 20 yards average shy from that memorable semifinal a couple of years ago. Hey, mine, Dusty, I'm going to go down to 4A in St. George. I love St. George. And, Dusty, you rode Pineview all year long, but I don't know if you saw the night from Preston Mann coming up. How about this unofficially, because we don't have official stats there. 6 receptions, 154 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns for Preston Mann. Look, we've seen Dominic McKenzie tear opposing defenses up. He was good. 3 receptions, 110 yards with a touchdown. Unofficially, I might have missed 1 or 2 in there. But it was Preston Mann on this given night. Look, I know Pineview came up short, and they would much rather have a state championship, but young man left it all on the field, over 150 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns.
Absolutely. Again, go to blackcloverusa.com, put in the code DNR20, and get a discount on your order, especially with Christmas coming up. get those loved ones taken care of. There's nowhere better to go than Black Clover. All right, let's get to our last one here, our last segment. Let's go to the Riley Jensen Mental Performance Moment of the Week. Let's go to this one. Let's go back to the 4A championship game. We missed this on the broadcast. We want to talk about it here. Look, Pineview finally gets a turnover from Skyview. They turn the ball back over the play later, and things just did not go the way that Pineview wanted. Last play of the game, seemingly, Skyview's Casey Carlson has running around. And, a little controversy at the end with a personal foul in the middle of the last play on a peel-back block. The untimed down, led to some confusion. But my favorite thing is that Coach Hosner has some questions with the White Hat. They go through a lengthy conversation, mind you, And in the end, the official starts to walk away. Hosner calls him back, and they talk for a second, and Hosner shakes his hand.
Yeah, I mean, that was a moment, Dusty, that neither of us talked about on the stream, but afterwards, both of us talked about it in the car on the ride home, and just how impressive of a moment that was in the heat of battle. You've got a state championship on the line. You have a play where you feel like, a hit that really didn't need to be there, and on a fourth down, and you might have an opportunity here. In fact, both teams, when they set an untimed down, both teams sent their offenses out. They were both saying, hey, all right, we have an opportunity here. Skyview to close it out, Pineview to go win it. And to your point, there wasn't a rule in that situation where Pineview was going to get the football due to that penalty. And Coach Hosner, long talk, and just had a lot of respect for Coach Hosner. Been able to talk to him a couple times in semifinals and championships before this, but to see him take that opportunity and recognize that, hey, official, thank you so much. I made a comment on the stream where it's like, hey, look, this has been a long review. Let's just take the snap and get over it. And the officials, give them credit. They gave Hosner an opportunity to ask questions, to talk through it, to make sure he understood it. And like it or not, the rule was what the rule was. And Coach Hosner able to take a moment and just say, hey, official, thank you. Really appreciate the time. And I have no idea if those were the words said, but the gesture spoke them to everyone who was present. It was a great display of sportsmanship from Coach Hosner in a really difficult moment of the ball game. And that's one that will stick with me this year and beyond.
Again, sometimes in life, we have a plan. We have all things we want, and you just don't quite get there. Sometimes one of the biggest things to do is just say, you know what, you're right, I'm wrong, and shake hands and be able to move on. And, it doesn't mean that you're not a champion, because Coach Hosner is one of the best coaches in the state. I don't know how many guys have been to as many state championship games as he's been to as a head coach. One of these times, he's going to bust through. I know he will. He's the Matt Barnes right now of Utah high school football, where Matt Barnes, it took a while, and then all of a sudden Olympus turned into a dynasty. I feel like it's just right there for Pineview for it to take place. But this is one of my favorite moments of the weekend. Well, Dane, as football season's over, we're going to transition to basketball, but maybe we take a minute to give just overall thoughts of what we saw and what will be, hopefully, we will not have another season like this, but what it's been like to play and to cover these kids in what has been in the middle of a pandemic and all the restrictions stuff, but just overall thoughts of the football season in 2020.
Yeah. Well, Dusty, it was a season unlike any other, and one that was kind of weird. I mean, you show up to games, and you never quite know how many fans are going to be there or if fans will be there. And, I'm really excited for the opportunity and just grateful for the opportunity that we had to go and bring as many games to everyone that we could. Did our best to try to spread our coverage out, and it was awesome to see these young men, young 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids go out and really come together as a team and to put aside things they wanted to do, things that maybe in a normal year they could do for the betterment of the team. And when we looked at the semifinals and the championships and every player having to get tested for COVID, and, some teams had more effect than others, but at the end of the day, these teams able to come together and really do their best to support one another. And that includes kids that maybe went to practice every week and took, deep reps, but did not get opportunities to go out and lace them up or to go out and make impactful plays. But, they were just as critical as anyone else in ensuring that this COVID did not become a barrier to their teams making deep runs in playoffs and pursuing state championships. And so to me, the thing that I'll remember about this year is, it was different. It was an awkward year. It was a challenging year. Teams did not get in full seasons in some cases, but the ability of teams to come together and these players come together, coaches to come together and put aside what they want for the betterment of the team, which is really what, in my opinion, team sports are all about. And I think we saw that on display in 2020 and in the process saw some great performances, great seasons. Records go down. Records we thought would never be touched go down. And while certain names will be attached to those records, their teams will be just as responsible for not undoing or ending seasons prematurely. And been fun to be able to see that and be able to cover that here in this awkward 2020.
Yeah, you're right. And every year we talk about this, and we'll have our awards videos coming out, and everything will go on there. We always wonder, well, man, it's gonna be weird going out and watching games without X player, out there. If it was the first 4-year guy we covered, Alex Caressa, then Austin Kafensis, and now we're gonna have Kingsley Salamatia, and then so many others, Noah Kerr, right, or Jackson Dart. We've covered for 4 years. There have been in prominent roles on teams. It's going to be weird, but what always reminds you is that there's always a new crop of guys, and there's always somebody that's going to step up, and you're like, my gosh, just get it. But the biggest thing that we do is just to be able to cover these kids and to bring as many games we did. I mean, put something out. I think we did 64 live streams this year. In some cases, we worked with schools to get those done. And others, we wanted to make sure, honestly, that families could watch as many games as possible, especially if you're out of state and you want to be able to see these kids play and their nephews, cousins, or anybody else. And that's what this season was all about. It was about trying to figure that out. And the fact that we were able to get a full season in is the icing on the cake, and is really what we hoped for and wanted. And to be able to finish this season, which most people thought, and we kind of joked about it, week 4, it's all you're going to get through the championship game and to crown champions, is something that I will never forget being able to cover and being able to be around. But this season was unlike any other because there were so many other things. If it was Tufele's, Tufele family dealing with their sister and daughter being in the middle of COVID and all this stuff, and all the teams having to deal with heavy hearts. It's Bryson Strong at Maple Mountain. It's Tia's Tribe at Pineview. And, not personally, I shared not that long ago, personal things going on in my family, that we've all kind of dealt with this stuff. It's not just COVID, but has been amplified by what we've gone through being in the middle of the pandemic, but able to enjoy Friday nights and enjoy the game weeks has been something that this fall season will never really be forgotten. It's unique because of the pandemic and everything else. But it's also unique because so many of us are going through things off the field that we're trying to deal with. And I think, at least for me, brings a lot of empathy what we've been able to learn this year. And it's been a terrific year. And, it's one we'll never forget, but it's been a pleasure to bring. And just so glad that we got through the football season. And then on a high note, again, we finished on the field. The kids got to play. We got through it, and it's been absolutely outstanding. Well, once again, look out for our awards videos be coming out very soon of our nominees, and go vote. And again, the voting's part of the process. So we'll say it in every one of them. The voting's part of the process, but one of our most interactive videos we do every year are sending out our awards videos. But it's been outstanding. Congratulations to the state champions in the state of Utah. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to cover these kids, and we look forward to getting the basketball season as well. For Vince Francis, Dane Stewart, I'm Dusty Litster. Thanks for joining us watching Deseret News Rewind on Deseret.com.